Welcome to Sports Guy Talking. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am joined by guest Shawn Davisson today to debate about which prospects are most likely to become future superstars in the NBA that are coming out of the 2022 NBA draft, with Jaden Ivey, Keegan Murray, and Shaedon Sharpe as the prospects in contention for superstardom. It really begs the question to ask which one of them will perform the best. Does the youthful age matter? Does that matter more, or does proven production matter more? Before saying anything else, though, I want to present you guys with the topic question. So here it is: who is most likely to be a future superstar in the NBA? Jaden Ivey, Keegan Murray, or Shaedon Sharpe?
All right, man, let's kick it off. I'm going to go off most likely, but I'm going to just say right now, if we're going off straight potential, Shaedon Sharpe is easily the guy I think that would be picked here. I mean, Shaedon Sharpe, he could end up being a few years down the line. We'll look back and say, man, that guy is the best guy in the class. I mean, he could be like a Paul George guy, CJ McCollum. I think he has superstar potential. I think we haven't seen him in a while. So there's a lot of question marks there. So I'm going to say out of these three guys, I'm going to say safely that Keegan Murray is going to end up being the best of the three. I really like Keegan Murray. Really long, switchable guy. That's what you want in today's NBA. You look in the finals, all those guys were switchable defenders, really good defending, three-point shooting, can attack at the rim. I really like Keegan Murray, man. I think he's a safe pick, but I also think he's got some great potential to him.
So you say Keegan Murray is your pick, and that's kind of where I'm just going to disagree with you. I'm not too high on Keegan Murray. Do I think that if he reaches his ceiling, he could be a good player? Yeah, but I'm not necessarily too convinced that he could reach his ceiling as far as I'm concerned. Look, whenever we look at these draft prospects, I feel like every year we're thinking, okay, all the top prospects, okay, about 90 to 95% of them, they're going to reach the potential. In reality, it's more of a 50-50 guesswork kind of game. And in this situation, I'm going to say that Keegan Murray is going to be more like a role player, more so than a star player. He doesn't have that star power in him. He feels more like he could be a number 2 or number 3, which is fine in and of itself. But if you want him to be a number 1 option on a championship contending team, you might as well forget about it. That's where I'm at with Keegan Murray. To me, my pick for this would be Shaedon Sharpe. I don't even think it's relatively close between these other guys as well that we're just talking about, because Shaedon Sharpe, he has the alpha ability. He has that clutch ability, or at least he's shown the potential to be, with the way that he takes a shot. He's a great shot creator. He's really good off the ball as well. Defensively, he's good as well. And he's got a lot of athleticism in him. When I look at Shaedon Sharpe, I think about how this guy could one day lead the league in scoring for a season. That's why I get that kind of vibe with Shaedon Sharpe. I don't get that vibe with the other two players leading the league in something. Shaedon Sharpe, I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be making a lot of all-star appearances. People are going to be like, man, how is this guy not rated higher? So to me, Shaedon Sharpe has to be the pick.
Yeah, man. I definitely see that. I mean, it's hard to argue with you there. That man has all the potential in the world. You look at him. I mean, he's about a 6'5", maybe 6'6" player, and then a 6'11" wingspan. I mean, he's long. He can guard multiple positions. He can play multiple positions. I think he could play a lead guard role, maybe not a point guard, but like a lead guard role where he has the ball in his hands and he's scoring a lot. I definitely see that with Shaedon Sharpe. Real quick with Jaden Ivey, I think I'm a bit higher on Jaden Ivey than you. I see Jaden Ivey. I think he's an explosive player. I think he could be really good, but he has some things to work on. So we're looking at two guys who played 2 years in college and got a lot better, and we're looking at a guy who's never played a college game before.
And that's why I've said in the introduction about what do you value more. And what I'm going to value more is age, because I like how Shaedon Sharpe, yeah, he just turned 19, but he's like a young 19 years old. And he didn't play college ball last season, but he was still practicing with Kentucky. So he was still getting some experience against some of those college guys. And plus, sometimes when you go to the NBA, sometimes you just need some years to fill out. Those guys that you just mentioned, sophomore players that come into the NBA, they're already a little more seasoned. But what that also means is that sometimes they're not going to be able to grow as much. When I look at Shaedon Sharpe, I just keep thinking about how this guy, if he's not going to be a star right away, he could definitely be a late bloomer, like an Andrew Wiggins, for an example. Andrew Wiggins, former number 1 overall pick in Minnesota. While everybody was hating on Andrew Wiggins, with the exception of you and I, we had you on here 2 years ago to talk about Andrew Wiggins when he got traded to Golden State. But basically what I'm trying to say is a guy like Shaedon Sharpe, it might take 4 or 5 years to really see what he's made out of. And that's why I really like the Shaedon Sharpe guy, because you know that if he gets off to a bad start, as long as he shows the potential and as long as he's showing that he's willing to put in the work to be great or at least to be the best version of himself, you know that Shaedon Sharpe is going to be really good, and he's really, really talented. And real quick, like you just said with Jaden Ivey, I want to talk about him. A lot of people seem to love him. I'm not necessarily in love with him, although I will say that if he reaches a ceiling, he'll be a really good player. But to me, he has more athleticism, more than actual skill. What wins you games in the NBA today? Skilled ball. And I don't think Jaden Ivey is a good fit in today's NBA in terms of being able to have skilled ball. He's more athleticism, more than actual skills. So, I mean, I'm telling you what, man, Jaden Ivey has real bust potential. If he doesn't work out, people are going to be like, why did that team take him so high in the lottery? He should have been a second-round pick. That's what I get with that vibe with Jaden Ivey. I don't see enough star power to justify picking him above these other two.
Yeah, man, definitely see that. I could see bust potential here, although I'm not going to go with Jaden Ivey as my biggest bust potential guy here. I think for me, it's Shaedon Sharpe. I mean, you look at Keegan Murray and Jaden Ivey, they've shown the ability to improve. When you said their season, I don't necessarily agree. These are guys who are only like 20 years old, and I think Keegan Murray's 21, but I'm not going to say their season at all. They showed that they can improve. That's what they've proven to me. I haven't seen Shaedon Sharpe improve. Shaedon Sharpe can be a great defender if he wants to be. Shaedon Sharpe needs to get better at dribbling the ball. He has pretty loose handle right now. He needs to get better at that. I don't know if these are things he's gotten better at, but he has played great competition at Kentucky. Oscar Tshiebwe, National Player of the Year. Ty Washington, potential lottery pick. I mean, you got some veterans on that team, really good players. But where does he stack up? I mean, he might not have been the best guard on that team that year if he played. And my question is, why didn't he play? It was his choice to not play. I understand his draft stock was on the line, but that's a worry to me. Does he love the game? Does he want to play? So I could see there being, his floor and ceiling way higher than anyone else's in this entire draft to me.
But I think that for some teams, though, I wouldn't necessarily care about what's his floor, because for some teams, let's say you're a fringe playoff team that wants to trade up in the draft, just hypothetically speaking, and you're right there, you're right on the cusp. Because if he doesn't work out, okay, fine, you can just roll with your other shooting guard or your other guard player, and they'll still be a fine team. But if he works out, man, you might have just stolen an all-star. I'm telling you, Shaedon Sharpe is a guy that is absolutely worth trading up for in this draft. I don't see that with Jaden Ivey and with Keegan Murray. I think that those two have serious bust potential, especially that Jaden Ivey got. Does he have great athleticism? Yes. Can you teach athleticism? No. That's something that you have, but you need to have more than just those things. Athleticism alone can only get you so far. You need to have the ability, to have the skill, to put the ball in the hoop, to be able to facilitate, to be able to switch. And yes, I know Keegan Murray can switch onto multiple defenders, but just because you can do those things doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a superstar, because that's the type of question that we're asking. We're asking which guy is going to be a superstar. What you're saying with Jaden Ivey and with Keegan Murray, yeah, those are nice things, but they're suggesting that their ceilings are high-level role players or number two options. That's not necessarily a superstar. Shaedon Sharpe, to me, and watch out for this bold take, Shaedon Sharpe has the ability to be a future top 10 player in the NBA 4 to 5 years from now. Mark my words.
Man, I'm not going to disagree with you with that statement right there. I think Shaedon Sharpe has MVP level potential. I think that man could win an MVP one day. I think that's a guy who can put up about 30 points a game one day if he wants to. Like, I think he can put the ball in the hoop, but will he? We haven't seen it. That's my only thing. So Shaedon Sharpe is the risky, fun pick here to say he's going to be the superstar. But I can see Keegan Murray as being a guy that we thought Michael Porter Jr. would be. I thought Michael Porter Jr., if he, injuries plagued him a ton, but if Michael Porter Jr. reached his ceiling, I mean, man, he would be an insane NBA player. So Keegan Murray, I think you're putting a ceiling on Keegan Murray that's way too low. I think Keegan Murray could be very, very good one day. Like, we could look up in a few years and we're like, man, Keegan Murray was the best player in this draft. He's putting up 26 and 10 and a few blocks a game. Like, I think Keegan Murray can be really good.
All right, and let me go ahead and ask you a follow-up question for each of these three player comparisons. Okay, just go ahead and predict which, like for Jaden Ivey, Keegan Murray, and Shaedon Sharpe, predict which players they are going to end up looking most similar to in the NBA.
Yep, I'll start off with Shaedon Sharpe. Shaedon Sharpe, I would say, I think he ends up looking like a CJ McCollum. Um, you know, I was gonna say Tim Hardaway Jr. as like a floor, but realistically, man, I think he's gonna be a CJ McCollum. I mean, CJ McCollum is a really good player. He's Dame's number two guy. He's bigger than CJ McCollum too, and longer, and can play better defense. You look at a CJ McCollum with good defense, and I think you've got a really good player there.
And for me, for Shaedon Sharpe, I'm going to say his ceiling is going to be Bradley Beal. He's going to be a scoring champion at some point. This guy has the ability to put the ball in the hoop. And I'm just thinking, man, his offense is going to be borderline unguardable. Just if he manages to get on the floor for whatever reason, once he gets to the NBA, barring injuries, this guy's going to win a scoring title someday, or at least he's going to be somewhere near it. And my floor for him, let's just say on the off chance that he doesn't work out, I highly doubt that. But if he somehow doesn't work out, I'm going to say that he's going to be like Kelly Oubre Jr., just a guy that can get hot and cold, guy that can play transition offense. So that's going to be my floor for Shaedon Sharpe, even though I highly doubt that would happen. I think that he would be far more likely to reach the ceiling, regardless of whatever team he lands up on. All right, so you want to do Jaden Ivey or Keegan Murray next?
Let's do some Keegan Murray a little bit since we've been talking about him a lot. Keegan Murray was a really tough one to put a comparison on. There's just not many guys like him, I feel like. And so I kind of settled on the Clippers all-star level Tobias Harris we saw. That's what I think. I know already used Tobias Harris for like I think it was Paulo Banchero.
Yeah, we had you on there last week for that. Yeah.
Yep. But I'm gonna recycle that one again, and I'm gonna say Tobias Harris for Keegan Murray, with some more defensive upside and some more upside there. So that all-star level Tobias Harris we saw, I think that's what I think he's going to be. I think, like I said, he could be a Michael Porter Jr. who reaches his ceiling, or, I think worst case, he could be like an Otto Porter type guy.
For me, for Keegan Murray, my ceiling for him, I'm not really too high on him. On the off chance, I feel like he could be a Pascal Siakam type of player, a guy that could help a championship team if he goes to a best case scenario and he gets the best case scenario for his development. But that's like off the 1% chance. For me, I think that Kyle Kuzma has to be the pick for Keegan Murray. He's just going to be a guy that's going to be a role player on a championship caliber team, or if he's on a mediocre to bad team, he can put up empty numbers for them. So that's my ceiling for Keegan Murray. Not really to be too impressed about out of these three. And my floor for him, I'm going to go really low, and I'm going to say a better version of Noah Vonleh. All right. And does that mean he can switch on to defenders? Yeah, but he's not going to be really playing anything more than rotation minutes because he just doesn't have anything more than role player like skills in him, because in the NBA, what win you games? Skill ball. And Keegan Murray, I think that he lacks skills. I know you don't necessarily think that, but for me, that's my floor for Keegan Murray. What about Jaden Ivey?
Yeah, I'll get to that, but one real quick thing on Keegan Murray. Let me throw this out there, why I like him so much. His skills that he has are translatable to the NBA. What do NBA teams want right now? They want switchable players on defense that can also shoot threes. Keegan Murray does that well. I think just for that reason, he'll be in the NBA for a long time. So I'll just say that. The translatable skills are what I look for in these prospects, and that's he has translatable skills. As for Jaden Ivey, man, Jaden Ivey, if he turns out what everyone thinks he can be, he could end up being a John Morant. Explosive, not a good defender. Like, I think he could put up really good stats, but, you made a video on this. Were the Grizzlies better without John Morant? No, they're not better without John Morant, but they're better defensively. And I think Jaden Ivey does have more tools to be better defensively, but I don't know if he's going to want to get there. So John Morant is the absolute ceiling for him already, but I'm not going to give him that. I think he could end up being more like a Donovan Mitchell, a lead player on like a mid-level team. And I know they had really good records on those teams, but we know they weren't going to make any noise in the playoffs really, and they really didn't. So, Donovan Mitchell is my most realistic, but the floor, I think he could drop to like a Stanley Johnson level guy, just a complete bust, not very good.
Yeah, and for Jaden Ivey, on the off chance, I do feel like he could reach Ja Morant levels, but I highly doubt that would happen. I think that best case scenario for Jaden Ivey, I think he's going to reach Indiana level Victor Oladipo, a guy that's going to make a couple All-Star appearances, a guy that could make a team overachieve and make them competitive into a playoff basketball team that you would look on paper and say, how did that team make the playoffs? So that's going to be my ceiling for Jaden Ivey. And my bust level, or my floor for Jaden Ivey, I mean, I already said that this guy has serious bust potential. Yeah, I 1000% agree with you. I'm going to go with Stanley Johnson, and if not, I'm going to go with the second round prospect that was drafted back in 2018, that Dilo guy, the guy that was part of the dunk contest for the Thunder.
Amado Diallo.
Yeah, that guy. That's
Yeah.
right. That's going to be my floor for him. I think that the guy has serious bust potential. Look, he's really athletic, but he's got very little skill to last in the NBA. So Jaden Ivey, he's not a prospect I'm really too high on.
Yeah, man. I'll just say it for this class. I mean, we usually, especially for NFL, like we're pretty aligned. And usually for NBA, we're pretty aligned on opinions. But this draft, I mean, you're super high on Chet. Chet's in my updated big board, my number 6 guy. Keegan Murray is my number 3. He's probably a lot lower on your list. You like Shaedon Sharpe a lot. I wouldn't say a lot more. I think we both see his potential, but I think you think he has a greater chance of reaching that. It's going to be interesting because Paulo Banchero just moved up to number 1 in my latest big board. I mean, yeah. So, man, it's interesting, man, because we never disagree this much. So it'll be interesting to see. This draft class is crazy.
Yeah, and I want to say one thing about Shaedon Sharpe. He's now moved up to my number 3 on my big board. I'm liking this guy more and more just because I keep thinking about his athleticism, his skills, and how this guy has the ability to be a future scoring champion. I even think this guy could be playing on a contending team, although I think that he's got to get drafted to the right team in order to do that. Obviously, a team like the Sacramento Kings, if they're going to draft Shaedon Sharpe, they're not going to be, obviously, playoff contenders, but they might be a team that might make the play, in which for them, that would be a big accomplishment for them, considering that it is the Sacramento Kings. But yeah, one final question that I got to ask you, though. If you're the Sacramento Kings, let's say a combination of Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, and Paulo Banchero are taken with the first 3 picks. If you're the Sacramento Kings, who are you taking with that 4th pick out of these 3 prospects?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, if you're going straight off my big board, and I think we have the same philosophy here. If you're a rebuilding team, you take the best player available. And don't worry about positions, just take them. And De'Aaron Fox isn't a guy that you're like, I mean, I'm very high on De'Aaron Fox. I like him a lot, but he's not a guy you're like, oh, well, we absolutely cannot draft a point guard. But I'm not going to draft a point guard here. I'm not going to draft a wing. Really, you could say this guy could turn into a wing, but I'm going to go with Keegan Murray, man. I think they draft Keegan Murray. I don't think they draft Keegan Murray here, but I think there's potential that they do. I think Jaden Ivey ends up being the pick here, but man, I think if you're the Kings, they need a big man, a guy who can guard multiple positions. When's the last time the Kings have had a guy on defense that you're like, man, he can guard all these positions. He's big, he's long. I mean, when's the last time you could say that about the Kings?
But when's the last time you could say that the Kings were even necessarily a competitive team? And to answer your question, yeah, it's been a really long time. But to prove your point, the Sacramento Kings haven't had a lot of things. When's the last time they've had a good coach?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you there. They haven't had a good coach. The Kings are probably, I'm going to say it, probably the worst organization in the NBA. Like all-time NBA, I think they're the worst organization. They never have success. They never develop players very well. Tyrese Halliburton, they had something good in him, traded him away out of nowhere. I did not understand that in the least bit. So, that's I'm going to say this, whoever gets drafted to the Kings, I know this is bad to say, but whoever gets drafted to the Kings, I might already say, man, I don't think they end up well, because wherever the Kings pick, they just aren't good at player development.
Because the Sacramento Kings, they have no plan in place. But to answer my own question, I think Shaedon Sharpe has to be the pick. If you're the Sacramento Kings, you want stardom, Shaedon Sharpe's going to give you that. You want points, Shaedon Sharpe's going to give you that. As for defense, who the heck really cares? Because the Sacramento Kings have never really been good at defense anyways. You might as well try to make your offense overpowering, try to cover up some of your flaws on defense. What the heck anyway? Just go ahead, make the for fun pick. If you miss on this pick, okay, whatever. Everybody can roast the Kings like usual. if you're the Sacramento Kings, you go big or you go home, and Shaedon Sharpe absolutely has to be the pick. All right, so Sean's going to go ahead and pick Keegan Murray as his most likely player to become a future superstar in the NBA. I'm going to go ahead and pick Shaedon Sharpe as my pick for most likely to be a future superstar in the NBA out of these three prospects. We're also both not really too high on Jaden Ivey, although you're higher on him than I am. Well, thanks for being on the show, Shawn. Really appreciated you coming on here. All right, make sure you follow his Instagram at Shawn.Davisson. He also has a Twitter account. Make sure you follow him at Shawn Davisson too. All right, man. Thanks again for coming on the show, coming with me, talk about draft prospects.
Oh yeah, man. Thank you for having me. I mean, draft time, NFL, NBA, we love that. I think that's our favorite time of year. That's definitely mine. So always enjoy coming on here and talking about it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's certainly one of my favorite times as well. All right, bro. See ya.
See ya.
Yep. Bye. That was Shawn Davisson that you guys just heard. All right, so even though he thinks that Shaedon Sharpe could potentially reach the ceiling, and that if he does reach the ceiling, he'll be the best player in the draft, he's going to go ahead and say that Keegan Murray is the most likely player out of these three to become a future superstar in the NBA. While my pick straight up is Shaedon Sharpe, I don't even think it's close. I think Shaedon Sharpe is significantly better than Jaden Ivey and Keegan Murray. So that's going to be my pick for who will most likely be a future superstar in the NBA out of these three draft prospects. So my pick will be Shaedon Sharpe, as he is a shooting guard that's coming out of Kentucky, despite the fact that he did not play college hoops at all. So that's going to be my pick for who will most likely be a future superstar in the NBA. So that is why I believe Shaedon Sharpe is the most likely prospect out of those three that we just talked about to become a future superstar in the NBA. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in a future video. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Dustin Tran and at Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter at Dustin Tran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel Sports Guy Talking.